So we have a situation where reality isn't reality anymore, and where lies is the truth, especially concerning the media and the media sources like the BBC. Lies is the truth, and reality isn't reality anymore. I mean, I'm holding this, which I'm reading now, which has got notes on, and that's a reality because you can see it in my hand. But the left-wing leaning media in this country will have you believe that that isn't a reality, that isn't a reality. If it's raining outside, they'll say it isn't raining outside. And this is the situation, understanding reality and understanding the truth. Hi everyone, it's Mike. I just want to do a short film on these people in St. Louis, in Missouri. This couple who had to defend their home. They'd spent 32 years in this home, this large, it's kind of like a mansion, doing it up. It was in a terrible state when they moved in there, and they've spent 32 years doing this mansion up and working hard to do it up. To remodernise it and such like, and or to restore it, and 300, around about 300 Black Lives Matter protesters just broke their gate down, and entered into their private space where their property was, their driveway and such like, and started shouting abuse at them, threatened to kill their dog, threatened them.
To do to protect my hearth, my home, and my family.
Well, no one was protecting you, and they were screaming at you and threatening to murder your dog and harm you and your wife. What do you make of the attacks on you for doing what we used to believe every homeowner had an obligation to do? Why are they denouncing you as a racist?
I don't understand. And here's the interesting thing. I've spent my career defending people that are defenseless, for people that are having a hard time making their miracle happen, for people that don't have a voice. My black clients love us. The night that this happened, I had some of our black clients calling us up till 2:30 in the morning, telling us how wrong it was, the way the press was writing us up, telling how wrong it was that we should be portrayed as racist.
So the man had to arm himself with a rifle, and his wife had a gun, because they were scared. They were terrified they were going to get killed, because we've only got to look at the internet. Of course, you won't see it on the media in this country, especially in this country, Great Britain. The BBC, the British Brainwashing Corporation. You won't see it on Channel 4, you won't see it on Granada, you won't see it on any of our media sources, in the newspapers, on our national media sources, because they want to keep it quiet. Because Black Lives Matter has been created to destroy Donald Trump. And, the Democratic Party are involved with this in America. This is a worldwide thing. It's a global movement. So it's the movement at its source is Marxist. The people who run the movement are Marxists. They want to destroy capitalism and take us into a world of Marxism and totalitarianism. So these people were outside their house with a gun to stop these people from killing them and from burning their house down. Because, if you look at the media on the internet, if you look at Facebook and at Twitter, even though Twitter and Facebook are falling over themselves to delete these posts, you can see white people being beaten to death, being dragged out their cars and beaten up, being kicked to death.
Just that sinking feeling to where it's just, well, there's nothing I can do now.
The video clearly shows 4 guys walking up to Mason and attacking. He never lets go of his groceries as they take turns kicking and punching him on the ground, including in the face. The last to leave leans down to talk to him, then gives him one last punch.
I was sitting there on the ground, just kind of in shock. Didn't really know what to think.
Mason didn't realize that it wasn't over. There was a 5th guy.
He comes up to me, kicks me in the face, and screams, "Black Lives Matter."
The homes being burnt down, shops being attacked and burnt down. And, what are people supposed to think? People are frightened, you know. And, you know, the worst thing about this is there seems to be more white people than black people involved in this. You know, so you've got these middle-class, pasty-faced, all in black, white people who are Antifa, who've migrated over to Black Lives Matter. So what's happening is black people are being used by these people for their political ends. You know, they're being used and they don't understand it. The black community is being used by the Democrats, who are mostly white, and by white people, the middle classes, Antifa. And the worst thing about this couple in St. Louis, and it was Mark and Patricia McCluskey, is there's what's called a circuit attorney there called Kimberly Gardner, and there are calls for her, you know, for her to be disbarred, to be kicked out, such as her behaviour, which we'll look at that in a minute in a news source in America. Her behaviour is terrible. She's not prosecuting enough people that should be prosecuted. She hates the police force, you know, and she's crazy. This woman's crazy. Let's take a closer look at this lady. It was written in a news source called The Observer 2 years ago. This is 2 years ago, the 5th of May 2018. And the headlines were, why St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner must be investigated and stopped. Now, this was written 2 years ago and she's still there now. And the article goes on to say, the great strength of our nation is that no person is above the law, not even those who enforce the law. That's why it's imperative that the state of Missouri begin investigating the St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner. Anyone following the twists and turns of the prosecution of Missouri Governor Eric Cretans, I think that's how you pronounce it, won't need much persuading. In that case, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner has clearly, repeatedly and consistently violated the ethics of her profession and brought disgrace upon the Circuit Attorney's office. She has skirted and flouted the law in ways that are truly unimaginable, and she needs to be removed from office in order to send a message to prosecutors around the nation. You abuse your office power at your own peril. Many have focused on her mishandling of the governor's felony indictment, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Kim Gardner's other prosecutions and the day-to-day mismanagement of her office share the same shameful pattern. She has ignored cases that were easy wins, prosecuted cops with what looks like outright malice, and lost staff and personnel at an alarming rate. And she supports Black Lives Matter, and she said that she's going to, look into prosecuting this couple for protecting their home.
This is what you were taught to do. It's what generations of Americans have done. It's the most basic right of all, the right of self-defense. The McCloskeys exercised that right, and now they're coming close to being destroyed. They stood up for themselves against the mob. The McCloskeys' fate remains in the hands of the mob in the form of the St. Louis Circuit Attorney General Kimberly Gardner. Gardner is a radical prosecutor, one of many elected in recent years, with financial backing from billionaire George Soros. In 2019, Gardner brought criminal charges in just 23% of the cases the St. Louis police brought her. Her policies have helped destroy that office, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office. Since she took over, the prosecutor turnover there has surpassed 100%. Gardner's reaction to any criticism about this never changes. Allege a racial conspiracy against her, and then move on. At the start of this year, Gardner sued the local police union and several city officials, accusing them of, quote, a racially motivated conspiracy to deny the civil rights of minorities. She charged them under the Ku Klux Klan Act. As if. After riots ripped through countless American cities, Gardner was clear about who she supported in it all.
I've noticed that the Attorney General is tweeting quite a bit about looters and rioters, and not about the fact that we have a history of police violence in the city and nation, and that has caused people to take to the streets yet again to demand for accountability and change in our criminal justice system.
How dare you be angry about looting and crimes when the police are still out there enforcing the law? After the McCloskeys defended themselves, Gardner finally found a crime she cares about. She promised to have them punished if she could.
I am disturbed by the events that occurred over this weekend, where there were peaceful protesters who were met with guns and a violent assault. We must protect the rights to peacefully protest, and any attempts to chill it through intimidation or use of force will not be tolerated. Since learning of these events over this weekend, I've worked with the public and the police to investigate these tragic events. I will use every extent of Missouri law to hold individuals accountable.
And you know, a lot of people don't discuss this because they don't think it's relevant, but it is relevant. If 300 demonstrators come onto your property, amongst those 300 there will be 3 psychopaths, violent psychopaths, because psychopaths are 1% of the population. So 1% of 300 is 3. So there's a probability that there's 3 or 4 psychopaths amongst them. And there's certainly narcissists, 3 or 4 narcissists, they're violent narcissists. And these are the people that will run out and attack you, and the other ones will follow them. These are the people who initiate the violence. This is why, you know, it's very serious. The issue is very serious. And this is why, I've said before, a lot of our leaders in local government and in central government are narcissistic. Some of them are psychopaths. They have no empathy with people. They don't care about that couple. They don't even know who they are. That couple, because they've renovated that huge house, which has probably cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're looked upon by these Marxist groups as being the bourgeoisie, you know, the rich, who should be taken down, and this is the way that Marxists think. And it's incredible, you know. Nobody in America now seems to care about this, and in this country. We've had situations in this country where shops have been, you know, looted in these Black Lives Matter demonstrations around London. Shops have been looted, people have been stabbed, white people have been beaten nearly to death. And this is all, again, on the internet. It's on Facebook and it's on Twitter and on YouTube. But, you know, our media, you know, doesn't breathe a word about this because, as I've said before, Black Lives Matter are being lifted up as being heroic, you know. But really, they're being used, you know, by left-wing elements. And this woman, you know, Kimberly Gardner, this circuit attorney in St. Louis, she has been funded by, and probably is still being funded by, George Soros. This is a man who has hundreds of NGOs, and his main aim is to bring down countries, and is to bring down especially Donald Trump. And this man is on a quest, this guy George Soros, to bring down the Western world as we know it, to flood the whole of the world with immigrants, so that open all borders of all countries. This man is behind this, as well as other billionaires. This man is a multi-billionaire, and this is what we know, what we've got to put up with. And until we can but debate these issues, seriously debate them with critical dialogue, and not be called a racist all the time that we try, there's not much we can do about it. I'm trying to be as objective as I can now. I try to keep away from emotiveness, you know. But until we can, you know, debate these issues objectively using critical dialogue, nothing is ever going to change. But the black community has to realise that they're being used, and the people at the top of this are the Democrats in America who want to bring down Donald Trump. The black community needs to wake up to this.